Live.
Good morning, everyone. I know it is here in Louisiana. We have quite a rainy morning, a good start, but I'm sure on the East Coast and on our West Coast, we are having a much better weather situation going on. Just to introduce myself, my name is Lakeisha Camise, and I am the National Director. Well, I'm sorry, the program director for our national program for M4MM, that's Minorities for Medical Marijuana, our Project Clean Slate program. Now, Project Clean Slate, everyone wants to know, what does that entail? Project Clean Slate is regarding our cannabis expungements and wraparound services. There's been a lot of questions regarding how do we get this done. I know you've seen a lot of news about expungements and pardons and record sealings. Well, it can be quite the challenge trying to navigate the legal field and navigate how to get these charges off your record. But hopefully this webinar here will help you in kind of giving you a little guide, and also knowing that you're not in this alone, because you have us, Project Clean Slate, here walking you through the process and ensuring that you're getting this off of your record. So just a little bit about me. I graduated from the Southern University, as I tell people, so nice, I did it twice. I did it for both undergrad at New Orleans and then also from the Law Center in 2021. During my time at the Law Center, I wasn't just a student, right? So, of course, I had to participate because I was that person that was always the advocate. Prior to law school, I worked at the Dallas County Public Defender's Office as a DNA paralegal. We did post-conviction exoneration. So what that means is these are the people that they've looked at the case. We now have DNA evidence that can prove that this person was not there. None of their biological fluids, hair fiber, bite marks even, was there at the scene. It was no way possible that a person committed this crime. And also we did witness recantations. Say someone came forward and said that person did this, they committed this crime. Well, later on they say, hey, I really didn't mean that. I said it to set this person up, or someone told me to do it. That's a witness recantation. So we were able to get these people who were actually innocent out of prison. I'm not saying it was a quick fix. They'd been in there and had to exhaust their appeals for 10, sometimes 20 years. So I call it God's work, where we had set the captives free. Those people who never should have been in the judicial system, had we had this type of technology or this type of information to begin with, they never would have been there. So fast forward again to law school. I was chair of the diversity committee. I was part of the Student Bar Association as well. And I also was the secretary and then later on the president of the M4MM chapter at Southern University Law Center. And that was our Minorities for Medical Marijuana student organization. We did things like voter registration in the community, getting that education out regarding the medical cannabis that recently was legalized here in Louisiana, and just letting people know how to holistically embrace this plant, how to utilize this plant, and how to, not run afoul of any laws while using this plant, because while it is medically legal in some states and recreationally legal in a few other states, it's still federally illegal. So we want to make sure that we're taking care of everyone in our communities and trying to rectify this harm on the war of drugs. I also, during that time, had the opportunity to work for Southern University's medical marijuana program at one of their cultivation sites. So I got to oversee everything from seed to sale. That means seeing when the seeds come in, when they're planted, their nutrients. I was in the back. I did some trimming. So trust me, it was eye opening. But I got to touch every aspect of that business, including the finance department, project management, inventory, HR. In fact, while there, I made sure that over 35% of the people that we hired were from a diverse background. And that means gender, race, sexual orientation, and to make sure that we partner with minority and women owned vendors and increase our community outreach up to about 40%, making sure that we are touching the community in which we're serving. So I'm really big on that whole idea of Sankofa, reaching back, bringing those people along. And I'm going to bring you guys along to let you know what's going on with cannabis expungements. I'm going to share my screen here for you. And we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, and I think we are up and running. Awesome. Okay, I am going to just keep my camera on and let you guys go through this guide with me. So first things first, a lot of people talk about the war on drugs and what it means and how it impacts our communities, but I don't think they really know the gravity of how this has really decimated some of our communities and have imprisoned so many of our mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, just everyone in the community. So I'm going to give you some numbers. A lot of you don't know, but marijuana has been, driving this whole mass incarceration thing, right? And I know you've heard a lot about super criminals in the past and mass incarceration, and you're wondering, what does this all mean? So I'm going to give you some numbers. Now, of course, every day throughout the entire United States, people are arrested for a multitude of things. A lot of it involves drugs, illegal drugs. And at the time when marijuana was still trying to come into its own and be legalized from its criminalization in the past, which never should have happened, we had certain things like this happen, where if you take into account the usage of fentanyl, of cocaine, heroin, opioids, to see that marijuana, over 52% of drug arrests were from marijuana, that's kind of daunting, right? And then the section that really, really just sticks with me is it's not like they went after the Frank Lucases or these people who are just rolling in the dough and they're totally taking over the community. No, 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 no. This is arrest of people like you, like me, like cousins, brothers, nephews, uncles, just people who had just a small amount on them. It could be anything from an ounce to a gram. This is not someone who's riding around with 200 pounds stowed up and they have their own money counting room. This is everyday people living their lives, and because of a small amount of a plant that they have on them, they were arrested. They were convicted. Some of them did hard jail time. And that equates to this, where we had over policing in our communities. So over 7 million people within a 10-year span were arrested for a plant. So if you sit here and you think 37 seconds, how long is that? I'm going to give you 37 seconds. Guess what? Someone just got arrested. And if you think about it, if you're Netflixing and chilling at home, in the span of your commercials, there are at least 5 to 6 people arrested while you're watching a commercial. I know these numbers are daunting, but they're necessary. So you're thinking, well, that's because a lot of people are just using marijuana. A lot of people are smoking weed. So we did a study. ACLU looked at 18 to 25-year-olds. If you look at it in our communities, in the white community and the black community, it's about the same rate, right? You see where, our Caucasian brothers and sisters are utilizing it just a little bit more, maybe because of a little bit more access. But you got to realize that it's the over policing that was going on in response to the war on drugs that was affecting our community. So if we look at it again, that means on average, Black people are arrested 4 times more than Caucasians, although Caucasians are utilizing this plant more than us, right? And if we look at it to our Latin communities as well, that means over 13,000 people were deported. That those undocumented citizens, and they could have been here since they were 2 years old. They've never been to their home country. They don't remember their home country. They were brought here for a better life. And they may have built that life. And they may not have come across as they went through the right steps to enter this country. But that means 13,000 people are taken away from their families. And I have personal experience with this in the sense that a great friend of mine, her husband, undocumented person, she's an American citizen, they were married, he still had to go through that process. And part of that process was going back into Mexico for that last step of it. And they have 2 small children, not knowing whether or not that person will be completely checked off and approved and able to re-enter this country, or if they're permanently separated and not able to come back into the US and not be with their family members. Granted, a good 2 years after decriminalization, we're still having those numbers because we're still 11 times more likely to be arrested for possession of a plant. So what does that equate to here? That means when you're arrested, a lot of times you get that one phone call, right? Am I going to call my mom? Am I going to call my significant other? One of those things you're going to think about is, I got to call my job. So that means these people are arrested. They could have been on their way to work or on their way getting off work, and they're arrested. The system has interrupted their life. So if they don't contact that job within a certain number of days, they lose that job. But they also lose other things that the rest of us as citizens, get as public benefits. They lose that right to get the SNAP benefits, better known as food stamps. They also, for our veterans, if you're a veteran, you lose the right to your VA benefits until you get out of prison, and then you try and get those benefits reinstated. But if you have that conviction on your record, since the Veterans Affairs is under federal law, that's a problem because federally it's still illegal. So you're going to lose that benefit. You also lose your voting rights. And here's a fact that a lot of people don't know. When you go to prison or jail, even if you're there for a long period of time, whatever your sentence is, you can lose your voting rights. And a lot of the private prison complex was built on, you see, why do we build out these prisons in these big areas where there's not many people around? Because the number of people that they have in those prisons add to the number of people in that population within that community. That means that affects how many members of Congress they get every year. So they count that into the numbers, although they don't have that right to vote for whoever it is. So if you're in, I'll give the example, you're in a primarily red state, right? You've been incarcerated there for your drug charge. They may elect someone that is staunchly against cannabis legalization. You don't have that option or that choice. They strip you of your voice. And not only do they strip you of your voice, but this is wasteful. Over 3 billion a year that states waste enforcing these laws on simple possession, because most of this is simple possession. And that's money that could be going to our schools, that could be building better roads, that could be community programs, but instead we're enforcing laws against our community and against our greater good. So you're thinking, okay, those numbers were old, Lakeisha, those were old. Well, this is after California, after Colorado have legalized marijuana both medicinally and recreationally or adult use. As you see here, these are the arrest records and the total amounts in 2017 and 2021. This is just up until a couple of years ago. And if you're looking at these numbers, of course, we see Texas. Texas, I tell you, I lived there for a while, and they put a lightning path on the way to electric chair. But look at those numbers. Yes, it's gone down, but it hasn't gone down enough to rectify the harm that it has been committed in our communities. And I'll even give you another one. Most of it's Midwestern states, Southern states. And if you look at Mississippi, you're thinking, okay, 5,000 folks, right? But you got to look at that 5,000 folks per year in that time period. And it goes down to 3.6 thousand people. And you're thinking, okay, well, it went down, but it didn't go down significantly enough because a lot of people are in this industry now and they're profiting, and they are literally billionaires happening in this industry. And we still have people that have these lingering charges that are following them throughout the process. So, what do we do about this, right? Well, one of the pathways that we have to helping folks get these charges off of their records is expungement. Now, I'm going to talk about two different things here. There's expungement and there's record sealing. And you have to know the difference because each state, since, of course, marijuana is not federally legal as of yet, each state is different in the sense that some say we're going to expunge that record, and some say we're going to go ahead and seal that record. And depending on which jurisdiction that you reside in, this can be a major difference for you, right? So expungement, erase, remove completely. We've heard words of destroy, permanently destroy. Great, awesome. This is what we love to hear. According to the American Bar Association, this is where we take that criminal record. It's completely destroyed from state and federal records, right? So it directs that court to say, hey, this never happened. It's completely obliterated from your record. This person was never in the criminal justice system. If anyone would go, I know as far as for Dallas County, when I used to work there, there's the public access of records, and then there's the separate access. The separate access, me being an employee there, I got to see more of that record. I got to see more of the information. I got to see the notes from the DA. I got to see any notes from any of our public defenders that were working on it. That kind of information that was very sensitive. That's not really, for public record or for public view. And then there's that public side. That means I or any one of you can go onto their website. You can access this database. You can see if someone have charges against them. You can see what those charges are, when they happen, but they don't give you all that background detail that you really need to know about it. In expungement, that is taken off the plate. That means if I would go into the Dallas County records, your record has been expunged. When I get there, it's going to not even show that at all, whatever charges. It may say no record found, or it may bring up any other charges that you have outside of cannabis, which is what you want. However, it's a little different when it comes to record sealing, right? Now, record sealing, this is kind of iffy. It's going to be stored away from public access. That's great. If any general member of the public goes there, they look at it, they see, what's going on? What's happening here? If they're looking at it, they're not going to see anything on your record. But that doesn't get you completely off the hook. It's one of those situations where they hide it, but the court still has access. That means the DA's office still has access. That means the public defender's office still has access. So it could be a situation where, unfortunately, you get caught up in another charge, or it could be marijuana related, or it can be a totally different criminal charge altogether. They're able to go in and they may actually utilize this. And I know in Texas, they have where they can kind of lump those charges together. They can actually aggravate those charges that you have against you because of those previous charges that you've had. So I'll give you this example. Arizona, we've done an expungement clinic in Arizona on several occasions. They use the record sealing process. And using the record sealing process, that means they kind of set that aside, right? And public view, they're not going to be able to see it. But set aside for Arizona means that you've completed everything associated with this particular criminal conviction. That means that you came to court, you showed up, that you paid all your fines associated to it, that you paid all your court costs. You've taken care of your lawyer fees. You had X amount of time or days or what have you that you couldn't get another conviction on your record. Whatever all those penalties that they put with this, you've completed that. So it just says, oh, they've completed it. It's on the side. It's not anything you have to worry about. And when you have a situation like that, it makes me kind of nervous because is this something that can be reopened or pulled up from my past? So that it's kind of different. So right now I'm going to let you know a little bit about federal and state. So things change depending, like I said, over and over again, what jurisdiction you're in, whether or not cannabis has been legalized in it, and how it's been legalized, whether it's medical or if it's recreational or adult use. And I'm going to stop my share for just a moment to play you this brief video in which my producer in the background, I'm giving a huge shout out to Nicole running everything in the background for me. I appreciate you so much. If you will go ahead and share this video clip.
A pardon for all prior federal offenses for the simple possession of marijuana. There are thousands of people who are convicted for marijuana possession who may be denied employment, housing, or educational opportunities as a result of that conviction. My pardon will remove this burden on them. Second, on all governors to do the same for state marijuana possession offenses.
Hi, I'm Eric Range, Chairman of the Board for Minorities for Medical Marijuana. It has been an honor and a pleasure to serve this organization as it has grown to the largest minority 501c3 in the cannabis industry. By now, you are aware that President Biden recently pardoned thousands of individuals who have federal marijuana possession charges. We applaud the president for taking this unprecedented and historical action to right the wrongs of the war on drugs. However, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There is more we can and we must do. Unfortunately, the president's actions will do nothing for the millions of individuals who received their marijuana conviction at the state level. For the last 5 years, M4MM has been at the forefront of restoring individuals and communities impacted by prohibition. Our project Clean Slate, in partnership with local attorneys' offices and others, have helped hundreds remove marijuana charges and convictions from their records. We can't rest now. So many are depending on us to be there for them. Our communities need us and we need you. There's a direct correlation between your company's CSR, ESG, and DEI goals and the work we're doing here at M4M. A corporate partnership program, we can become a value add to your business while expanding the community-based initiatives that we're already doing. We have several national programs with proven success, specifically around social economic issues impacting those most hit by the war on drugs. Our programs serve women, minorities, veterans, LGBTQ, and those wrongfully convicted of marijuana, and they create positive social change in the cannabis industry. As I said earlier, there is much more that we can do and that we must do. Can we count on you to help us to do it? If so, simply respond M for MM to this email, and we'll send you more details on how you can get involved. Thank you again.
Thank you, Nicole, for that. Awesome, awesome. So thank you, Eric Range, for making that wonderful video. And we're going to pick back up to tell you just how this affects us. So everyone, we were so excited that Biden said, hey, we're going to go ahead and do these pardons, but we really need to look at it and see how it's going to impact our community, because there's a lot of talk around legalization of marijuana, and there's a lot of our politicians that are running on this saying, hey, I'm going to go ahead and legalize marijuana. I'm going to push through this bill. So, you know, me being a voter, I'm an informed voter, first of all, and I implore all of you to be the same. That means look at your candidates, see what's going on, and see how it's going to impact your life, your community's life, and those who are directly related to you as well. So as we're looking at it, let's just see what Biden's pardon does. Of course, it came about October 16th, well, October 6th. And that seems right about right that we put out all these wonderful initiatives. I've worked at, like I said, the public defender's office, and always around that fall period is when I see a lot of people who are gearing up for either re-election or are trying to get elected. They start, you know, cashing in on some of those alleged campaign promises. So it says for federal convictions of simple marijuana possession. Let me let you guys know what that means. It only applies to those federal convictions. It does not apply to anything within the state law, any municipality, any local entity, county government, only if your charge was federally and for simple possession. Now, what I know from working in a public defender's office is that a lot of times you'll have things combined. Say this person was under the influence. That's why they were arrested. Were they under the influence for alcohol or cannabis? If it's under cannabis, then that's a little trickier. That's not just simply possession. Also, if it's a situation where they have a gram versus an ounce, or whether they have 14 ounces or 14 grams, that amount also affects whether they say a simple possession or if it's a more compounded charge that you're facing. So what Biden's pardon did, it did affect 6,500 formerly incarcerated persons. It did do something, but there are currently 0 people who are incarcerated within these yet to be United States under just simple possession federally. Not saying that no one's in federal prison for marijuana possession, but it's not simple. It is something that's combined with some other federal law. Say they arrested someone under some federal racketeering charges. That's combined with that marijuana charge. So when you get arrested, they throw a litany of charges at you and see which ones stick. And if that possession charge sticks along with your racketeering or what other federal charges that you have, then it all gets lumped together. And it becomes a situation where you can't parse it from it. And you can't just say, oh, I want to get this expunged. But if you get this expunged, you still have these other criminal charges. And it ties in together to keep you into that system. Whereas for state, I tell you, it varies from state to state, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And then, as previously mentioned, it could be either an expungement or it can be a record seal. And what did I say? We always want to go for that expungement if we can. So in looking at expungements and record sealing, it mainly the driving force is whether or not cannabis has been legalized within those particular states. States that have not yet legalized cannabis in any shape, way, or form are less likely to have any laws on the books regarding expungement. They may have some under their criminal justice code or any criminal code dealing with their laws in that state regarding just expungement as a whole, but specifically to cannabis, it's the driving factor is whether or not they've legalized. As you can see, there's more legalization in more states than there are not, which shows that, hey, the views are changing. People are realizing that this is a plant. It can be utilized medicinally. And even if people choose to do so recreationally, they shouldn't be criminally charged for this, right? So, which states offer these expungements, right? These states that are listed here, and this is just a sample. There are also more states that are coming online. I believe this week the Virgin Islands recently legalized, and they're bringing on their expungement program as well. But you got to know those expungement laws in each state. Some of them are great that we love, that it's automatic. And that's one of the things that we really push with, like our national policy director, Eric Foster. He helps drive policy. And this is why I tell everyone, make sure you vote, make sure you're active within your community, because you have to hold those electors accountable. You voted for them. You might have told your friends and family to vote for them. And they may have ran on that campaign promise that they're going to go ahead and get cannabis convictions expunged. They're going to work toward legalization in their state, or if they're medical, work toward getting it as adult use in their state. And you have to hold them accountable. So when we do those automatic expungements, we absolutely love those, because this is a simple process. Usually it involves just filing that petition for that person, following it through the system, and making sure that it's completely taken off that person's record, notifying all the entities involved, whether they had that possession charge municipally, if they had it with a certain sheriff's office, make sure that we get with that sheriff's office and say, hey, that's taken off the record. So those automatic ones are great. However, there are other, conditional ways in which they expunge or seal records. It's for certain marijuana related things. It may be you can't have a charge of arson or domestic abuse or family violence tied into that. And we understand that. If there are other aggravated offenses connected to that, certain states say, hey, we can't get that sealed off your record. We can't get that expunged. And we need to know those laws. And I know you're looking like, wow, this is a lot of laws, but there is help. And one of the people that help is, of course, M for MM. And I'm just going to run through our little spiel here with our mission statement. Of course, we're based in Florida. We are a nonprofit organization. But M for MM fights for diversity within the cannabis industry. And that means everything, just how we embrace this plant holistically. We also know that we have to be advocates. We have to reach out to our communities. We have to do all that research, because we want to make sure that the information that we are giving those who have been affected by the war on drugs, or even wanting just to get into this cannabis industry, that they are getting the most accurate information possible. And one of our flagship programs is the one that I am so proud, so honored, and so humbled to lead, is Project Clean Slate. And so we do those expungements and we do those wraparound services. So Roz, I just have to give a shout out to her. She is our founder, our CEO. This is her brainchild, her vision, her legacy, and it is impacting so many people across the country. And we are just so glad to be a part of this. In creating M for MM, she saw how this has decimated our communities across the board, across every state that you can imagine. And she says, we've got to fix this. We've got to right this wrong. So she created us as a social justice program. And so we make sure that we go into those communities, and we're not just there for a fly-by-night. We are connected with many dispensaries. We've connected with legislators. We've connected with other elected officials, media personalities, attorneys, judges. And we've gotten this entire network set up where we get to go into these communities establish ourselves as friend, not foe, especially if we're dealing with something so sensitive as a past conviction. There's shame, there's stigma surrounding that conviction, and we want to let people know that, hey, we're here. We're right here in the struggle with you. This is not a situation where you have to go at this alone. And those wraparound services that we do, again, I'm touching on those voters' rights to reinstate them, and also voter registration. What I encountered in working in the public defender's office is that some of these people have been locked up on charges, and they've been in there for decades. And they've been in there since they were very young. They probably didn't get a chance to register to vote, or no one taught them about registering to vote and letting their voice be heard and letting their needs of their community be heard. And so you have to take them and say, hey, this is how we register you. This is how we get you active in this, because you need to say what you need in your community. Also, any social services, we help them get ready to re-enter their workforce. Any mentoring, and of course, I tell people, anyone that has a past cannabis conviction or marijuana conviction, I look at them as subject matter experts. So if you were locked up for, and I'm going to get into my community voice. If you were pushing heavyweight and you got locked up on that possession charge, and you were that person that were growing while it was still in its illegal form, you have skill sets that we may not know about. You may know about what nutrients, what strain needs, and you may have that valuable information that can be utilized in the cannabis industry. And what better way to right a wrong than not only get this off that person's record, bring them into that industry, and then allow them to grow and flourish and be able to give back to not only their families and provide for them, but also their communities, because there are so many people in that so-called legacy market that are coming online. I believe New York just this week had a gentleman who previously was convicted, got it off his record. And as you know, if you have any type of convictions regarding marijuana, it's hard to even get a license in the cannabis industry. You are absolutely barred at that point. Well, a lot of these companies, they're looking at it and saying, okay, we need to change this. We've decimated this community. We need to put some social equity in place. So yeah, those who have gotten that charge off their records, they've been directly impacted, or a family member directly impacted, or they've lived in a community that was directly impacted. We're going to decrease the fees on your licensing applications, or we're going to, have X amount of dollars that we're going to give to you to help fund your entry into the cannabis industry. And that's righting that wrong and giving them a pathway to be a productive citizen. And even if they do not wish to participate in this cannabis industry, we still want to make sure that they're actively working, that they're gainfully employed, that they are, living their most fulfilled life after this, that this conviction was just something that was on their record. It doesn't define their life, that stigma does not follow them into the next phase of whatever opportunities await them. So you're wondering, how do we do this? Okay, this seems like a lot of information I've given you. This is the simplest process ever, and I'm so glad to tell you guys about it. First of all, you just visit our website. And our website is very user-friendly, very easy, and it's designed to be that way because we don't want to make it more daunting. I know that there are plenty of people that have come out of prison, and I will share two stories with you. One, I had to help one gentleman actually get his ID, his driver's license. Well, in Texas, to get your driver's license, you got to have your Social Security card. He doesn't have a Social Security card. Why? Because he was arrested and convicted and locked up at 17 years old before he even got his driver's license. And he was not able to go and get a Social Security card or a driver's license. He doesn't remember it. I mean, how many kids really know their Social Security number until maybe they have to fill out some forms for college or higher education? So they don't know that. So I had to forge that partnership with the Social Security office to say, hey, can you give me something to verify his identity to get his driver's license? And he spent decades in prison. He knew his TDC number, his prison number, but he didn't even know his social security number. And that's one of the things that we're facing with some of the people that we encounter. So you go to our website, we make it super simple. It's a Google intake form. The first thing you're going to see that pops up is something like a little banner when you get onto this website, and it's going to say, hey, got charges? Hey, we can help you. We can help get this off your record. Give us some information. Once you click on that link, it's going to take you directly to the form. And the form looks like this. It's very simple. We're going to ask you for some simple information: your name, your email address, your phone number, your address. And we're going to need to know a little bit about those charges. And even if you don't know everything, that's fine. We will find it out for you. But if you say, hey, I got convicted in Nevada, okay. I was convicted in whatever county that's in Nevada, and it was for possession. Okay. Even if they don't know if it was possession for an ounce or 5 grams or whatever, we can find that information out. It's a simple one-page form. You go ahead and submit it to us. And then you ask, okay, so what happens? I put this form out there. It's in the atmosphere. First of all, we want to tell you that it's completely secure. Your information is safe because this is sensitive information. We don't have access to your social security number unless that jurisdiction requires that we get that information from you, in which case what we're going to do is we're going to email you first. We're going to say, hey, we've gotten your response. We're working on it. We're going to reach out to you because first we're going to do some background and see if we can look up those charges and see what kind of charges we have, so that we can see what kind of services that you need. We're going to call you. We're going to verify your information. We want to make sure we're talking to an actual person because you're part of our community. We want to know that we're here. We're talking to you. We're actual real people. We're not robots. This is not some just automated AI thing going on. We're here. We're going to take care of you. And then we're going to implore our assistance from local legal counsel. I am so fortunate, so blessed that we have so many attorneys across the United States. We can text them, we can email them. They answer our calls, they know us, we know them, and they're there. But I will tell you, the process, depending on that jurisdiction, can be quite long. Now, if we're lucky, and this is with the automatic expungement part, it can sometimes take a month. That's like the speed train. But I will tell you, in some of these cases, it can take up to a year. And I know that seems kind of daunting, but we want to be accurate and completely transparent with you up front on how long this process can take. But we don't want you to worry about that because we're going to keep in constant contact with you and let you know exactly what's going on about your case. Even if it's a line to say, hey, still working on it. Or, hey, the court needs more information. Or, by the way, make sure that we've got everything. From the onset, we want to make sure if you have several simple possession charges, let's make sure all of those charges are listed. Let's make sure that we've got everything. Because in some jurisdictions, it's a one-time shot. If you don't list those on there, then we're not able to get them off of your record. And also, if it's granted, you get that certified copy. You keep it as your records. It's going to be filed with those appropriate agencies, whether it was through a sheriff's office that you got that conviction, or if it was with a certain county. We make sure we file it with those agencies so that they can go in and, in the case of expungements, completely destroy that record, that it does not exist, that it will not haunt you any further. However, if it's not granted, we're going to make sure that we get with our legal partners and we're going to do some further processing. We're never going to leave you completely out there in the lurch. You're never going to be like, well, I never, they said we can't get it. It's denied. So if it's denied, we're still going to look out for you. We're going to make sure that you're taken care of because, like I said, you're part of that M for MM community. So I would be remiss if I did not give the hugest shout out to Hawthorne. Hawthorne is our premier sponsor. We would not be Project Clean Slate without them. Hawthorne takes care of us. They are the reason why we're able to travel to many of these states and go to these dispensaries and set up for all of these wonderful, wonderful expungement clinics. And like I said, even if you're not able to attend a clinic, we still have that link on that website. You're able to, at any point, anytime. I can tell you, even over the Christmas holidays, I was getting emails with people that needed some assistance. And you know what? We're reaching out to them and taking care of them. So I am just grateful to Hawthorne, seeing how the war on drugs has affected our communities. And they say, hey, we're creating this fund. We're partnering with you. We're all in. We want to make sure that you're able to keep fighting the good fight and do this work. So I'm just giving you just a few of these wonderful dispensaries that we've and organizations that we have partnered with in the past and still continue to partner with. I love the 40 Tons. We do their Can I Get a Second Chance Cannabis Career Fair. We had a multitude of people reach out. Marion, Maine, first African-American female-owned dispensary in Maryland. And just a multitude of folks. Our Black cannabis folks, the Source, we've partnered with the Source in Las Vegas and Massachusetts, and just some of our MSO partners as well. They have been very supportive of us. And shout out to Tucky Blunt. We'll see you again in October. And we just continue to go back to these folks and partner with them because they're fighting with us and they're reaching out to those folks. And when they're coming into their dispensary, they're saying, hey, you know anybody? Do you have any charges? They have our flyers out, and we're making sure that we're reaching out to each person and making sure that this does not affect their lives forever. Just a few sources. If you need them, I will post them in the chat. I always want to make sure and cite that I did extensive research for this and that I did not do this alone. And of course, the last thing I have is if you have any questions. I see a lot of things and comments in the chat, and it is awesome. Oh, thank you so much. Shout out to Nathan. Oh, thanks. Oh, wow. This is awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Paula. Thank you. I appreciate you. And Nicole, my producer, who is behind the scenes. And if you guys need to get in contact with us, of course, you have the information for Project Clean Slate. But also, if you want to become part of M for MM, I will tell you, this organization, I've grown with it. I love it immensely. I started off as a volunteer, became their inaugural HBCU fellow while I was in law school, worked through their student organization. Now I'm heading up their Project Clean Slate. It is a wonderful family, and I count them as my extended family. So if you want to join, we have corporate memberships for those who are in MSOs, but for everyone else who is here on this webinar, we have that wonderful, as we call it, freemium. Or as I put it, it's a free 99 membership. You just go to our website, say you want to join us, you want to help us in Project Clean Slate, whether you want to help us in one of our other programs. We have programs that run the gambit. Nicole, who's our producer behind the scenes, she also does health and wellness. We have Stanley, shout out to Stanley, who's in Georgia. He does Sow the Land, that is our hemp program that support, hemp farmers and hemp farmers of color. And we have so many different programs that can help you. And I really love our supplier diversity program as well. This is where we help you guys out. Say you have those ancillary services that are within the industry. People think, oh, I want to get into cannabis. I don't know what to do. And I tell them, hey, most of it is not even plant touching. You do not have to go back there and know what nutrients go in what plant. You do not have to go there and say, I don't know how to trim leaf from this, from that. I don't know what I'm doing. But you may be a CPA. You may provide legal service, graphics. You may do packaging. Any one of those skills can go into cannabis, and that's our supplier diversity. So we get you contract ready. Say you don't have it together, you don't have your website, you don't have your social media up. we have resources that will help you with that. So get you contract ready, introduce you and network you with MSOs within the industry, because like I said, it's a holistic effort in this. And I'm so grateful and thankful to M4MM for this. Of course, if we have any questions, any comments, oh my gosh, I love it. Thank you so much. Theo, my best friend, is on here, and I'm just grateful to that as well. So shout out to everyone here that is listening, watching. We will have this for review for later on. It's going to be posted to all our media channels. I thank you for coming out this morning, and you guys have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. Enjoy the day, and please click that link. Come and join us for M4MM, and thank you for all that you do, even if it's just spreading the word about Project Clean Slate, because we have to reach back and take care of our communities. Thank you again so much for this.